All right, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Our second quarterfinals match could very well have been the grand finals. But unfortunately, one of them is going to get knocked out over here, and the other one will advance on. Spawning up here in the top right-hand corner of the map, the man from Evil Geniuses, the red Zerg player. Give it up for Suppy. And his opponent spawned down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, the man from his new team, Team Root, or should I say old team. It's the return to Root. Give it up for the blue Protoss player and American puCK. And the winner of this series will get the privilege to fight off versus the European Force BASETRADETV in the semifinals match. Of course, if you want to check out the other matches that are happening in the quarterfinals, you can go to Winter's StarCraft stream. That's twitch.tv/WinterSC, I believe. I think it's WinterSC. I don't think it's twitch.tv/winter. And of course, these two guys are very friendly with each other. Or actually, they just hate each other's guts, I suppose. Can't believe you'd stoop so low. But of course, these guys were having some really nice banter and friendly banter going on in the early stages of the game, or even during the vetoes and everything. Suppy was appalled that, you know, puCK would be so belligerent as to veto Arena and Frost. Oh, I mean, why would you veto Arena? Arena is such a great map. There's so many cool things you can do there as Zerg. Of course, I mean, granted, Suppy also vetoed Invaders, so I mean, there's only so much you could really say. Oh my god. Actually, both of these guys have been playing a lot of Overwatch as well. So I was talking about how Suppy, maybe a little bit on that, the Heroes of the Storm bandwagon for a while, has been busy with school and all kinds of other things, but he's finally started playing a lot more StarCraft. But I think he's still been playing a decent amount of Overwatch. puCK himself plays a decent amount of Overwatch. In fact, I think he is a really, really good Widowmaker for anyone who actually plays Overwatch. I've only heard positive things about his Widowmaker. And I've actually seen his Widowmaker. I've played with him. He's pretty damn good. But alright, taking a look at this game so far, we do have one gas opening over here for Suppy, just getting enough for Zergling speed and eventually getting enough for maybe a lair tech. But I will also say, Suppy is known for going for a lot of those Baneling openings I was talking about. The thing that Dark really likes to do, that Korean Kespa player. puCK, on the other hand, really loves his robo play. puCK is all about his robo play. Gonna be credit boosting out of the Adept Resonating Glaives and going for the 4-gate. 4-gate aggression. He's probably going to be taking third expansion fairly quickly behind all of this while he moves out with some of these Adepts. And as he does that, he's probably going to get out the Warp Prism and just use 4 Warp Gates worth of Adepts to try and get some harassment done while he secures that third expansion and just continues to macro up a big army. That's really all he loves. That's really what he loves to do about it. But alright, Suppy is going for that Baneling Nest like I was talking about. The reason why these Baneling Nests have actually become a lot more popular lately in the early game is not only can you do a lot of the harassment with Overlord drops if you get a fast Zergling, or sorry, Overlord speed upgrade, but the Banelings themselves are pretty effective versus Adepts if the Adepts are not very well split up. If the Adepts are well split up, well then guess what? Zerglings are much more effective against the Adepts because there's more surface area for the Zerglings to get a full surround. But if they are all clumped up together, which is good versus Zerglings, and guess what? The Banelings will all detonate on top of those Adepts. Adepts are light units, so the Banelings are going to be able to do a lot more damage to them and just be extra effective against them. And here we go. Warp Prism moving into that third expansion. We'll see how much damage that puCK can actually do. It's pretty typical. You want to unload around the mineral line, get into those nice little choke points to make it difficult for the Banelings or Zerglings to get good connections. And we're already seeing that puCK is doing some pretty good damage. He hasn't lost any of these Adepts so far. In fact, he's only lost that one probe in the earlier stage of the game that was a scouting worker. And with some good micro, yeah, he's going to be able to warp in a couple of units, but he also does some good pickup micro on this Warp Prism. It's going to be able to keep the majority of the Adepts alive and already trades out versus 6 or 7 of the Banelings. And that's a lot of gas investment from Suppy that's really not going toward his lair tech. I want to note, where is his lair tech? He's got 2 hatcheries, he's got 3 hatcheries, and absolutely no lair. He needs to start thinking about that transition, but right now he's busy dealing with the harassment over here from these Adepts, from puCK. Adepts continuing to get great angles of engagement, just funneling all these Zerglings through the choke point. Even those Banelings not really able to get the greatest connections off. As here we go, more Banelings streaming on in, and they do manage to clean up almost everything, but 2 Banelings left over. And again, this is not an all-in by any means from puCK. puCK was really just looking to put on a little bit of pressure while he establishes his 3rd expansion. He's got up a couple of these sentries, he's got up his Immortal, he's got up his own form of tech coming up behind this. And that's something that Suppy really lacks. Lair is finally coming up. It's about halfway done over here for Suppy. But that War Prism is still alive, and Suppy knows it. He's got his Queen ready awaiting to try and snipe it off as soon as it tries to come back in to get a bit of damage done. He's got a couple of Queens sitting over at that natural expansion as well, so I don't think that War Prism is going to be able to accomplish a whole lot. But I mean, just having it alive, having the threat of it there, and keeping Suppy back at home is allowing puCK to do things like, hey, move out across the map safely and not worry about a big flood of Zerglings just moving in and surrounding this army. Now, puCK also has Mochicore with his army. He actually warps in a couple of Adepts over here. Queen's not entirely on top of things, and they are actually end up going to start losing their lives over here. 4th expansion gets canceled as that army moves forward, and guess what? Suppy is busy dealing with all these Adepts in the War Prism. Only 2 Adepts are going to be left out hanging to dry. But guess what? The rest of the army moves in over here. Force Seal comes down on the ramp, and Suppy is trapped out of his 3rd expansion. He's having to pull the drones over here to try and get some damage done. He gets a full surround on these sentries, but I mean, it's drones versus sentries and Adepts. I know how this engagement's gonna go. The War Prism comes in and even keeps some of those sentries alive by picking them up at the absolute last second, drops them back out, and guess what? All these Banelings, they do get let down the ramp. puCK, I guess, feeling okay, trying to engage against this, and he does have more than enough to take it on. Another Force Seal goes down, trapping out a lot more of these Zerglings, and with another round of Warpins, I really do feel like puCK is not only taking the favorable engagement so far, but he may be able to take the game right over here. Oh, Zerglings do manage to make their way down to the ramp. Adepts aren't high enough number, though. I think this has just got to be it. Even with +1 melee research, these Zerglings are having such a hard time. I mean, Suppy has fallen so far behind. puCK can lift up the remainder of these Adepts and just retreat on out at this point and know, hey, you know what? I did the damage I need to. I got Immortals back at home. I got a 3rd expansion that's healthily mining. I took out so many of my opponent's workers. Look at this, Suppy sitting only on 44 workers to the 72 of puCK. Normally that should be reversed, if anything. Zerg should be on way more workers. puCK is being very bold and taking a 4th expansion. In a situation I think most people would say, well, the only real response from Suppy is try and counter all in at this point, and that's basically what Suppy's doing. He's trying to make as many units as possible, so sort of surprised to see puCK do this, but wow, I mean, the balls on puCK are very large. He's going to try and reestablish that 4th expansion in clear vision of Suppy, saying, you know what, you can't do anything about it. I have not only devastated your economy, but I've also devastated your army supply, and you actually can't cancel this 4th. Well, now we see Suppy. I mean, he's got to get out those Hydralisks. He's maybe looking to try and get up Lurkers. If he can get up to the Lurkers, Lurker tech, maybe he can get a really good engagement. Maybe he can get some nice harassment done. I don't know. It's going to be hard. That one Overlord's been sitting in the main base of puCK for such a long time, too. I almost feel like if this Overlord had just moved over here, loaded up a couple of Banelings, gotten some good Baneling drops off, maybe he could have made something happen over there, but I think it's a little bit too late for something like that to really work out. He's got to use all of his Banelings, all of his units back at home to defend against the big push in that's coming from puCK. Now, Queens do have, I mean, he has a decent number of Queens. He can throw down a couple of good transfuses, soak up some of the damage with those Queens, since they are pretty tanky units themselves. 4th expansion, almost definitely going to get canceled. There's no way Suppy can defend this, but he's going to try, it seems like. No, he's backing out. He knows it. Oh, doesn't even cancel it. Oh, a bit of a mistake over there. Trying to cut it down to the last second just to buy a little bit extra time, but well, losing 300 minerals in this situation, not exactly ideal for Suppy. Psystorm being researched right now, while it looks like Suppy's trying to just pick off whatever he can with a few of these Queens that are pushing forward, making a lot of Banelings. And I mean, hey, you know what? If you have enough Banelings, maybe you can make some magic happen. The Immortal's going to be able to soak up a lot of those Baneling kits if Suppy's not careful with the target fire, though. He's got to be very wary about that. He really does want to use these Banelings on the Adepts, try and get puCK to commit a little bit early, but puCK is content with just not engaging. He's going to wait for Suppy to engage against him because he's got a 4th expansion. Suppy doesn't. And I like the fact that he's using those adept shades to just scout out what Suppy's composition is. He says, okay, I need to know what you're up to. Are you like making mutals or something? Do I need to start warping in more stalkers? Do I need to be prepared for tech transition? There is a Spire coming on the way, as well as a Hive, but here we go. Banelings all coming in down the center, and they are getting some pretty decent connections versus the Adepts, but I mean, the Immortals stand strong, the south flank stands strong. And I think that Suppy is pretty much out of juice at this point. A couple of Archons being warped in as well, and I think that, yeah, that's it. puCK taking game number 1 pretty decisively. And Suppy was saying before the game, you know, take a look at my match history. You'll see how little I've played lately. And then he takes a look at puCK's match history. He's like, what the hell? You've played 100 games in the last 2 days. That's insane. That's actually pretty crazy. That's 50 games a day. 50 games of StarCraft a day. I mean, let's do the math on this. I'm gonna break the cardinal rule of not doing math on stream. If an average game is about 10 minutes long of StarCraft, and you have 50 games that you're playing, that's 500 minutes. That's 8 hours of StarCraft every day. And that's not including the time that it would take to find the matches or do any of that other stuff, or if you look at your replays, none of that. Just like that is the amount of time that he spent in game around approximately, because puCK is also a macro player. He's not like a all-in player. He's not a player that's gonna just, you know, try and end the game as fast as possible every single time. Looks like the next map is going to be Ruins of Endion for this game number 2. This is going to be match point. Suppy has got to bring it back. He's got to win 2 games in a row if he wants to go to that semi-finals and have a chance at winning any form of money. If he loses this match, he is out of the money. He has no chance of it because the semi-finals, I mean, there's only top 3 paid out. $50 for first place, $30 for second place, and $20 for third place. All right, but we're getting started. I do not have a map intro for this one. By the way, all those who are wondering, the map intros that I've been playing, all these crazy, cool little cinematic things, those are not made by me, in fact. Those are made by the wonderful person, Nice Username. I think a lot of people in the StarCraft community are familiar with him, but he does a lot of really cool stuff with the StarCraft community. He's also the head manager for the YouTube for BASETRADETV, which is one of the channels I broadcast on also. But ladies and gentlemen, we're hopping into it. Let's go ahead and check it out. As we spawn, down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, we have the red Zerg player from Team Evil Geniuses. Give it up for Evil Geniuses Suppy. And his opponent, 1 game away from moving on to that semifinals match. Representing his new team, Team Root. Give it up for puCK. Why doesn't puCK actually, why isn't he in the Root clan? He should be representing his team, but he's not. Gotta give him some hard time about that. Oh man, I even see like Dustin is Duck throwing out the puCK sub emotes. Man. Yeah, puCK actually has a really fun stream. He's a really, really strong player. In case you weren't sold on that already, I think the coolest thing about him is that he is one of those players that doesn't just say, oh, this is what's strong in the meta right now. I'm going to do this because this is the best thing you can do in StarCraft. He does what he finds the most fun in StarCraft. And he does a lot of robotic facility plays. He does a lot of Blink Stalker plays because he thinks Blink Stalkers and like Warp Prism harassment, Disruptor control, a lot of the very micro-intensive late game plays for Protoss are a lot of fun. So that's what he does, and he has been that kind of player for a very long time, where he does what he wants to do, not necessarily what he should be doing. And some people will say, hey, you know what, that in and of itself is a bit of a disadvantage, but puCK, that's what allows him to do things like play crazy large amounts of games, because he enjoys the game when he plays it that way. That's what lets him play 8 hours of StarCraft for the past 2 days on average and still be totally fine to play more and play in another tournament the next day. Both of these players are gonna win. Well, I mean, I guess he called dibs. I'm not a referee, so I can't respond. But all right, natural expansion coming down from both these players. Third expansion, I imagine, should be coming down for Suppy relatively shortly. He has those first 2 Zerglings out so he can chase down that probe and make sure that it doesn't cause any kinds of trouble, delaying that third expansion. But Ruins of Endion is one of the maps that I'm sort of interested to see where it's going to take this particular game, because, again, Suppy really like to go for that sort of baneling style. But one thing I will say about that last game, the thing that I feel like hurt Suppy the most is the fact that he transitioned out of that baneling tech like very, very slowly, and I don't really blame him. It's sort of difficult to deal with the adept pressure, the 4-gate light adept pressure, when you have a player as good as puCK microing those adepts around in the Warp Prism and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But the real problem is when you invest that much of your gas and your resources into those banelings, you really don't have any resources left to go up to that earlier lair tech. And if you don't have the earlier lair tech, you can't get out other things that deal with the adepts really well. Like, you can't get out faster hydroliths, you can't get out roaches, you can't get out a lot of these other things that could be really, really effective in the later stages of the game that would allow him to transition out and deal with the follow-up pressure from puCK. So we'll see what Suppy does differently in this game. He's got to do something differently. If he just plays out the game the same way he did in that last game, he's going to fall victim to the exact same thing. Because look at exactly what puCK is doing. He's got a couple of gateways being added on. He's chrono boosting out Resonating Glaze, or was chrono boosting it out. He's getting out a Warp Prism. This is going to be another 4 or 3 gate adept pressure. And what is Suppy going to have to deal with it? He's throwing out Evolution Chamber, he's throwing down the baneling nest, so far it's looking pretty similar. But maybe doing something like having out a couple of queens, or more queens earlier on, could be really helpful. And just making sure you zone out the Warp Prism, focus fire it down, and make sure, because this is one thing he was doing really, really well in that last game, in the earlier stages. But then he just had that moment, that lapse of, I guess, control, where he had the queen situated, ready to pick off a Warp Prism, but they weren't focus firing it down as soon as the Warp Prism came in. And that allowed puCK to warp in a ton of adepts, and that's where things really started to spiral out of control. If you can shut down the adept warp-ins for as long as possible, make it as difficult as possible for that Warp Prism to actually move around freely, that is what can really do a lot in shutting down this harassment. But puCK already warping a couple of units right outside the natural expansion of Suppy. We'll see how much damage you can get done over here. Adepts are going to try and shade over to the main base. No, canceling and saying, no, I actually find that there are a decent number of high value target units right over here. But these banelings be able to get some better hits off than they did in some of those previous games, already killing off a decent chunk of these adepts. Some of the adepts will still manage to survive, but we have more and more of these Zerglings and also some more queens coming out. If the queens can get involved with the engagements at the same time as the Zerglings and banelings, I think that would definitely be ideal. Also be able to get a full surround on the adepts and making sure that they can't just split themselves up very easily will be really, really nice. But here we go. Zerglings not quite finding the angle of opportunity that they wanted. I guess Suppy is just trying to scare these adepts back while he gets up some more of the banelings. But once again, Suppy is investing a lot into these banelings. I think that he still hasn't over-invested just yet. But, I mean, he still hasn't gotten up his lair tech. And puCK behind this, he's getting up his Immortals, he's getting up Blink research, he's doing all these other things that are transitionary things. He's gotten up his third expansion as well, and here we go. Adepts potentially going to shade on into the main base, and looks like he does end up canceling at the last second once again, maybe just using it for a bit of vision. But this might be the engagement that Suppy needs. He should be able to clean up this army A-okay, no problem. But now he has a lot of army left around that he's not really going to be able to do a whole lot with. He's going to try and move over to the third expansion, where he has taken a couple of losses. Oh, 10 workers already been killed so far. puCK doing a pretty good job, and also moves in the natural expansion. Now going to be able to focus fire down some additional drones. 13 workers, 14 workers kill, 15 workers before the final adept goes down. And that Warp Prism comes back into the main base and says, it's not over yet. I'm going to keep you at home for as long as possible. And look at this, just continuing to get the damage done. Shades a couple more of these adepts over to the natural expansion, and guess what? Those two guys are going to be able to kill a couple more. And again, it's all about buying time. The lair is getting started up equally as late as he has gotten this lair started up in some of those previous games. And I really do feel like Suppy's fallen behind once again. puCK is building up a little bit of a mineral bank, so probably wants to throw down a couple of those gateways and start worrying about the warp-ins back at home. But I mean, look at this. He's already knocked down those rocks. The chances of a counterattack from Suppy are next to nothing at this point. And what's he going to do? Try and use these Zerglings to knock down the rocks? Yeah, good luck. It's going to take a really long time because Zerglings do 6 damage and the rocks have 3 armor. So really, the Zerglings are only going to be doing 3 damage per hit. And you can't even get all of the Zerglings attacking these rocks because there's not enough surface area to actually do it. So in the meanwhile, we see puCK once again saying, well, I'm just going to take a really fast fourth before you even take a fourth, even though I've already secured a early economic advantage. Makes sure that his opponent doesn't play a little bit too greedy behind this, but the War Prism comes back in over here. At the same time, the harassment going in at the 3rd expansion, that does get cleaned up, but guess what? Adepts are doing some more damage done over here. 33 workers killed so far for puCK. puCK has had a phenomenal game, number 2 right now. And Suppy, he's struggling. He's really, really struggling. Infestation Pit is going down right now while he still deals with this Adept pressure. And this is another nice thing about the Adept pressure. It's not just the fact that it's doing a lot of damage or forcing out units. He's also getting a full scat on everything that Suppy has, because these Adepts are just running rampant. It's hard not to see what your opponent's up to when you are literally in their base 50% of the time, or 75% of the time. Now puCK knows, okay, you're getting up the Infestation Pit, you're probably going up to Hive Tech, you're looking to get into that late game tech and maybe turn this around with Broodlords or something of the sort. I'm not going to let you do it though. I'm going to establish a 4th expansion. I'm going to charge across the map with a pretty scary looking army right now. He's got the Sentries, he's got the Immortals. It may be a little bit of a dicey situation because he needs to make sure that he doesn't overcommit too early on. But I mean, look at this. There's 0 Banelings left out on the map right now. 7 Banelings being made, but some of the Queens are already going down. The Creep Tomb Wards are being taken out. And that does slow down a bit of this army and make it harder for those Banelings to get good connections. Stalkers are going to be protected by those force fields. And I would say puCK is still trading out relatively decently. puCK is actually leading up about 30 army supply as well right now. So puCK is going to have to take a pretty miserable engagement for Suppy to turn this around. Not only that, but Suppy has not even taken the Gas Geysers at his 3rd expansion. Ugh. Doesn't even have a 4th. He's down in expansion, and he's behind in even the expansions that he does have in terms of mining time. Couple Stalkers going to blink their way into the main base and try and pull this army over to the high ground where his Immortals and Stalkers can fire from the low ground, take out any of the Banelings that poach a little bit too far forward. Looks like he's trying to go for the snipe off on that Observer. Does get the snipe off, so going to shut down a little bit of that high ground vision, but not all of it. There is still that War Prism, and a couple of these Stalkers going to blink their way into the main base, sort of weirdly, but here we go. A lot of the Stalkers blinking their way up to the high ground, taking out the Queens, the Sentries, keeping the Zerglings and Banelings out of the fight for a little bit. The Stalkers should be off a cooldown for blink pretty soon, and they can retreat on out, but man, puCK is just picking Suppy apart. There is honestly not a whole lot that I feel like Suppy can do. I'm trying to think of things that Suppy could do better. It's not even necessarily that Suppy is getting ridiculously outplayed at this point. It's just that he's fallen so far behind. He doesn't have the tools that he needs to punish puCK for any of the moves that he's making. In fact, I can't really even think of anything that puCK is doing super wrong. Blinking a single Stalker forward, trying to detonate a couple of the Banelings on him. It definitely works out, and GG gets called. puCK takes a decisive 2-0 victory over Suppy. That means that puCK moves on to the semifinals. Suppy unfortunately got knocked out in the quarterfinals and is not going to be able to make it in the money. But of course, we do appreciate that Suppy is playing StarCraft, and that alone is enough to make me a little bit happier.